I think that's misleading.
You're essentially telling people to waste diamonds.
Not everyone knows. It's about
I would buff Maulers.
Yeah, buff Talene.
Exactly.
Hello everyone, Linker here with a masterclass from the very best. This is going to be a second round table. In the last one we had many awesome topics, and in this one the guests are learning with you. We'll focus on heroes. But first, let's meet the table. People, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, happy to be back. I'm Zolbar, long-time Region 1 Legends Championship contestant, I suppose, and GM of WestWorld.
Hello, I'm White Sushi, and this is my first time on the podcast. You guys, if you don't know me, I make visual guides on Reddit. And yeah, glad to be on the podcast.
Hello, I'm Panafonic. I do a bunch of the leaks for the game and a bunch of the back-end stuff for the community.
Hi guys, I'm Grub, Cloud Deputy, like the recrafter, all-round nutcase.
Hey all, Chromos here. I'm known for being pretty good at saving diamonds.
Howdy y'all, Arty here. I'm known for my inconsistent guide making and active Discord community.
Hey guys, Almo here. You may have seen some of my memes on Reddit, or you've seen me in Region 17. I'm a Cloud9 WT.
All right, god damn it! I was like talking the whole time. Didn't get what you guys were getting. Okay, okay, editing. Okay, thank you all for coming. I'm so happy to have you. So without further ado, let's just dive into the first topic. That's gonna be the new heroes. All of them are random. You see Silas going on an ally that's not obvious to predict. You see Mortis relying enemy healing, and Pipa is the essence of random in a hero. Arty, you looked into all these heroes, especially in your new faction Reddit guide. What do you think about those heroes' place in the meta?
Regarding, I'd say, most of the new heroes, I think they rate quite highly. Even with elements of randomness, with the recent campaign changes, especially on multi-stages, RNG tends to be the upward appeal. Pippa herself can have very bad RNG. She can Acorn herself, but given enough retries, you Acorn that enemy carry that just needs to be polymorphed. Silas himself, you can ult an Isolde if you get the timing right, and all of a sudden the stage is just completely won. I don't have too many opinions on the new hero. I don't even remember his name. What is it, Mortis or something? Just because I tend not to judge a hero too much till I actually use them myself. I find that early assessments tend to be quite wrong. You don't look at the proper synergies. But these RNG-based heroes, they tend to be on a very high upward spiral with the current campaign changes and even the even more upcoming ones with the Ascension and level nerfs. I find that RNG-based heroes are probably going to continue coming, and they're probably going to continue being strong.
What do you guys think about RNG-based heroes in general?
Hey, Almo here. I like having some RNG heroes, but not too many of them, because they're not that useful in PvP, which is something I really care about. And you don't want to go into a game and you have a 50-50 chance of, polymorphing yourself or the enemy, and then you could lose or win based on that. I don't mind using them in campaign, especially after the update, as Arty said, now that you can actually retry that specific battle in multi-stage battles. I think it's nice to have, and you try, I don't know how many times you want, but other than that, I think a few of them is enough, just not too many.
Arty and Almo covered pretty much everything I wanted to say, but I'll just add in that randomness is inherently fun for a more casual player base. We've seen this in many other video games, such as Hearthstone, where random cards kept being printed. The more hardcore community was less happy with it, but all the random cards were the cards that basically the more casual community were their favorites, and they really loved them. So I would think that to appeal to a wider population, the randomness in the heroes is likely to be a mainstay going forward.
Do you think that we could talk a little bit about power creep and how these heroes are definitely a lot stronger than other ones?
It's difficult for me personally to assess even Pippa's power, because I think I have her at Mythic Plus at the moment without signature item or furniture, and it's very difficult for. So I messed around with her a bit on the trial that we get, but I don't usually get these. I get them to Mythic Plus to increase max tree branch level, and it's only 4 copies.
So we do have one person that I'll turn this to in a second. One thing about Pipa, though, is that she does have 2 parts to her kit. One that's very scaling dependent, that's her damage, and another that's more of an effect based. She transforms stuff into acorns, she teleports people to the enemy side of the field, and you think, is she useful just on herself? Is she useful maybe with others? Is there any synergy that maybe she catches place? Almo, I know for a fact that you probably already have her, at the very least ascended. Have you had the time to experiment with her?
Unfortunately, not. In the past few weeks, I've been not experimenting, but testing the same meta, but in different positions, just to try to min-max how much I can of each team. So I didn't try the new heroes yet. I see other guys like Udom and others using her in Legends Championship, but I'm yet to try her actually in either campaign or PvP. So I'm sorry, I cannot add to that.
All right, and that's PvP. How about campaign? Do you think, guys, that random heroes are better in campaign most of the time?
Oh yeah, 100%. Just like with Lucretia Cheese or Thorn Cheese, like having that extra bit of randomness is sometimes all that you need to win a stage. I'm a big fan of it.
You know what? We will actually get to new campaign in just a second. I'll move this forward to the next topic, because niche strategies and heroes that new players can make their account around is one thing that I get a lot. I see a lot of those newer players, they pull Satrana, they pull Brutus, and they absolutely love the design. So we know that accounts that main heroes like Aaron, Daemon, or Gwyneth are going to work just fine. But can a Brutus account work? Can an Olmus account work? How about a Solis account? And Sushi, you're one person that new players trust for advice. What would you tell a new player if they asked you this?
So generally, all heroes, they work. Some just work better than others. And in the case of heroes such as Aaron, Daemon, Gwyneth, they just work a lot better than some of the other heroes. I think we are mostly looking at around a 20 levels deficit here and there between the top end heroes and the so-called lower tier heroes like Brutus. Although I think Brutus nowadays, he does see some use in Lucretia Cheese, which makes Brutus like pretty good. And I think a team who hard pushes as a free-to-play, he also uses Brutus quite a lot.
Would you build wide nowadays, or would you build tall? Would you rely on many heroes, or would you just focus into a specific one if you're a newer player that wants to try things out?
Generally, if I'm a newer player nowadays, I would still build the meta hero, like focus on the meta heroes. But if your question is more towards like if I would like stargaze and stuff, probably not. I just go full faction heroes, build them to ascended, and then move on to the next ones.
That's interesting. That's another topic that we had on the last podcast. And since I know that people talked about 4 faction, where you focus on all the different heroes, versus Stargaze, where you try to get the God comp. I wonder if you guys have any insight into this. What do you think is something that people don't know when they make that consideration?
Personally, a lot of people don't consider other stargazing options for a free-to-play. A lot of people automatically default to Telling Twins. One of the two every time. I think a lot of people tend to skip over a lot of the stronger stargazing heroes that work better outside of the meta. Heroes like Mahira have shown previous success with players like Koyu. I think Ebla also used Mahira to good success. Lucretia nowadays, with her cheese comp, tends to rise and rise for free-to-play priority. With the changes, there's even strong debate. I know Grub wants input on that, or it's even putting her first or second.
Oh my god, yeah, that was lots of changes.
There was a discussion about it yesterday. I'm of the opinion that she's probably the best option outside of Mythic Twins, just because of the ability to just put random heroes in with her to an extent up until the later chapters. I really do think in terms of ROI or return on investment, she's easily the highest hero, just because she doesn't necessarily require the same comp to work. She doesn't necessarily need the stall elements that Damon and Isolde and others need, but she can still really deliver high levels of power. And when you see her used in 5 set from beyond like 36, 37, so she does scale into the end game as well as being incredibly high return for very low investment.
Yeah, for sure. And then one of the things that I've noticed too is when people were talking about doing Stargazer, it was when like most of the end game people were just getting into like the 2 fight stages. And so it was still like beneficial to throw or to put a ton of investment into a single hero. But as the game like was added onto and more chapters were added and more multi-stage fights were added, there was like you needed a wider pool because you had to have so many different like viable teams that like you couldn't just invest into one hero.
Not to mention now that we have the hotel, investing in a lot of heroes is a lot more beneficial simply because it's the power boost and the stat boost that you get from getting all your heroes ascended. and being able to actually get furniture on them, being able to get the +3 and the +9.
So I think all this newfound viability is very interesting in the context of the next topic, which is going to be endgame campaign. I think it's way more inconsistent set friendly, especially when you talk about the late game after 33, 32, you have 5 sets. Say I had 10% win rate in an old campaign stage, and I had to do that 5 times. In an old campaign, that would be 1 in 100,000. And right now, all you really need to do is pull off 1 in 10, 5 separate times. It's about 50 retries, which is much more possible. So the question I have for you is, what are some heroes you think people are unaware of that are going to enjoy some newfound viability in this meta?
Well, the first one I'll start with is Pippa. I saw a clear of chapter 33 the other day at level 355 with Pippa Khazard using the SI30 to scale the control from like a Tassie Gorvo set as well. So she's already seeing a lot of use as sort of a control base. So I think we'll see her used a hell of a lot. I can't see with her kit her being anything less than top tier for campaign. Because as we've alluded to previously, the randomness is less relevant when all we have to do is just beat one team once and then just build through it that way. So I think a lot of the newer heroes will start to rise. I suspect we'll see Mortis in some form as an elite, but potentially into the mythic with the SI bonus on the Gwyneth damage. So it could potentially bring a lot more consistency and power into something that doesn't normally scale that well into the 34, 35s. I also think that it's important to discuss the sort of accessibility of these heroes and how well they perform based on their investment. I think Pippa is one that does work at a lower end of investment, but obviously will scale higher with better investment. But it seems that she works around the mythic level. I've seen a lot of very, very impressive clears just purely based on a mythic hero, which really does bring a ridiculous amount of power just on a very low amount of investment. Because as Zolbar's already said, it's 4 copies for Mythic Plus. And if you can get a hero to work at that, then it is another bonus for the 4F strategy we've spoken about earlier.
Another thing to do with that is something that I talked about with Almo on our podcast the other day. It's about how mages and dodge tanks work. So, for example, Ezio is one hero that I know will have some newfound viability now, because now he might be able to frontline. Because if you can click that retry button, like, I don't know, 3-4 times, then maybe he'll actually be way more viable than he used to be. Grub, what do you think about mages and dodge tanks in this context?
I think it's as you've said already, it's the sort of inconsistent comps have a lot higher a ceiling now, because as you've already said, you don't have to go through retrying it countless times to get the RNGC that you need. It's much easier to use Ezio. I mean, Ezio was seeing some use of sort of a Damon 5 pool set in the front line, but he's always been strong into just physical heroes. But it's likely that just because of how his counter works, that there will be seeds where he will immune ults, he'll immune big hits, and it will really bring a lot more viability to him in particular, especially because obviously the max health scaling, I can see him scaling very, very well long-term in terms of campaign progression. I can also see mages, as I've already alluded to, Khazard and Zaf, and quite a few mages as well, with one big ult can win a fight single-handedly. So I suspect we'll see a lot more mages climbing up a little bit, particularly because they don't necessarily need the sorcery tree in order to perform, unlike the celerity heroes that we've already seen as carries before this point.
We haven't even talked about cheese sets. What do you guys think?
There are certain campaign stages where you can genuinely 2v5 with Ezio and Flora, because nothing can hit the Ezio, and Flora can just deal enough damage to the point where Ezio can
2v5.
execute them. So I've been using him a lot. I've really liked him in PvE and PvP. In terms of cheese lineups, I jumped on the Lucretia bandwagon pretty hard. There hadn't been a Celipogian released for a long period of time before Lucretia was released, so I had the resources to ascend her pretty much day one with leftover Stargazer cards, so I just jumped into that, had a lot of fun. I didn't do full cheese lineups. I posted some on a day or two after her release. I posted some tanks in there. So this was before Barricade as well. So she doesn't have the consistency there with the extra help
I hate
from
cheese too.
that artifact. But I put her into some sort of maybe 1 or 2 of the teammates would die, get her an ult quickly, get her some extra power, and then just sort of 3v5 the rest of the stage, which has been shown to sort of just be worse than a full cheese lineup. I really enjoyed messing around with how many different heroes can I sacrifice here and in which kinds of situations, because say against a mage, if you try and, like, against certain stages, Lucretia just instantly gets one shot by like a mage auto attack at high level difference. So yeah, I still think there's a lot of room for experimentation there for sure, and I'm really excited to see her get some damage reduction and the furniture changes. I'm particularly excited for.
I think with Lucretia as well, we've seen obviously the buff that's just gone live on the test servers, which is a really, really significant buff. It makes her a lot more consistent in the damage reduction she can stack, especially during the hunting phase after the first kill, because normally her Hellfire and the hunting phase is stacked. So she does attain quite some bulk from that. And I think we'll start to see like Rain and like very quick ult base sets with her, and potentially with Ains as well. So I think we'll see a lot of these lesser used supports that are a bit more aggressive in nature rise up the meta a little bit. I really do think this Lucretia team is one that's going to rise, especially with the buff on the test server going live.
I think a lot of creative teams as a whole are going to be on the rise. Teams that can find a way to make like Pip or Odin portals work really well. These Nomura 9/9 teams, I think a lot of these very unique kind of comps are going to rise quite a bit with for faction and with campaign changes. As long as you have one big team to handle power cap, you can make your other teams quite creative and unique in ways we can push up with these lesser used heroes, your Oscars, your Torns.
I think that's one of my favorite parts about this game in general is just you don't like. Recently, I had never really heard about Torn being used in campaign, and then you just see these people who've maxed out Torn, and he's just like doing mad, like as much damage as an Isold would. And so, like, it's just amazing that in this game you won't have like as much efficiency, but when you put resources into somebody, you can definitely feel the powering for just about any hero. It's awesome.
You know,
that's one of the things that I really like about the campaign changes is it does really sort of foster creativity instead of just going for pure efficiency and which thing is most likely to beat the campaign since before the retries. Obviously, you needed the consistency. There's less of a focus now on consistency because these teams that work on like Nomura 9 work on one idea, but if that one idea doesn't work in the seed or in the particular like match, you automatically didn't have a team that works. But now because of the consistency changes, we will start to see a lot more of these creative teams forming a lot better, which I think makes a lot more strategies a lot more viable. I think it's not necessarily the case that you have to go for the objectively most powerful hero anymore. It's the changes. Plus, I think everyone will be able to climb a lot easier following these updates.
I think one thing that definitely brought all these heroes to the spotlight, the niche heroes like Torn, is definitely going to be the new mode. So Battles of Blood was really, really fun. And Zolbar, you've ranked incredibly well in our tournament. So maybe you can shed some light on this. What synergy surprised you considering your campaign experience? And what did you like about this mode? And also, what should the game do with it going forward? Do you think it should be permanent?
So I absolutely loved this game mode initially when it first came to the test server. I really enjoyed the little in-house tournament we had going, and I enjoyed playing the ladder as well. I mean, the interesting part for me is when neither person has like Flora and Ains, that kind of thing. Those kinds of matches are when I have fun. It's not very fun if one or both does, for sure. Because you can get certain situations working, like Lucretia. It's very interesting to me. In which kind of situations can you put her in, and will she work? Because a lot of the time she just flops, and she can do practically nothing if she's positioned poorly. So I would only, if I was going to use her, I would only ever put her in the 5th sort of slot. So I'd know exactly what kind of enemy heroes would be around her and what kind of friendly heroes would be there to support her to see if she could, pop off. Kind of similar to how you would do something like that with Isold as well, to sort of create the structure around to allow them to carry first. And even if you have like a perfect lineup, sometimes it still won't work if they're mage heavy or if they've got something in that area. In terms of what they should do with the event, in my opinion, as I said, I really, really enjoyed it upon release, but it does get frustrating relatively quickly if you queue into, say, 4 or 5 games in a row and it doesn't feel like there's anything you can do. So obviously there's going to be some tilt involved here, and people have inherent biases that there's no way to actually remove. Even if there was something that you could do in, say, 1 or 2 of the games, if you've already lost to some sort of Mesoth, Orthros, Flora stool that you had no answers for in a couple of games, then you get a game where maybe there's something you could do. You're already like in that mindset where you're sort of frustrated, and it just sort of rolls on from there. I do like the concept in general. I think there needs to be a way to stop. I don't see Lilith implementing a ban system because, thinking about the majority of the player base, I don't think it's something that really fits in with the theme of the AFKArena. Has always kind of been marketed as chill game, an AFK game, and bringing a ban system contradicts that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So for me to enjoy it long term, there would have to be some changes because, I played a lot before. I only just do the 3 wins on live server to get the event resources. In terms of a permanent feature, I'm the type of person that would much prefer this temporary because when it comes back, it will be very refreshing, and I'm sure I'll really enjoy playing it again. If I don't play it for a month and it's completely fresh again, it comes back, even in its current form, I'd still enjoy playing it after a month off for sure. But if it was to be made permanent, for me to enjoy it, there would need to be some changes like a ban system or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. That's insightful. And we had plenty of people that were very successful in this. What do you guys think about this event?
If I may,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I love the actual way the event plays, the fact that it's evened out. The RNG system is very annoying. There's no cutting it any other way. The RNG, even if you play a lot of matches, it gets frustrating. It gets tilting. I think the changes I would like to see, I'd like to see if people remember Heroes of Vesperia, that kind of ladder system. I'd like to see a PvP event similar to Heroes of Vesperia with this, where it starts off at the base of this very the same type of event it is now. But as you rise up to say Masters, Grandmaster, you get a band system or some implementation that people who are playing the event at a competitive level can sort of enjoy it for that competitive sense. Whereas at the current state, I feel even as you're rising to the top, I know Almo is at number 1, so I'll pass it off to you. What are some things you enjoy about the event? What do you dislike about the event? How would you change it?
Thank you, Arty. I did play the event quite a lot in the past few days, maybe at 6+ hours a day. And I enjoy the aspect of, I know that was a lot, but I enjoy the aspect of you trying to come up with teams that don't have big heroes like Grub. Was it Grub or whoever mentioned it before?
Zolbar.
Zolbar, where you don't have Ains or a Flora or one of these heroes. So you end up with just Maulers, and then you erase someone who has Orthros and Mesoth and other heroes. And these are fun games. But then when I got to the end, where it was 2,400 ratings, each game takes 2 to 3 minutes to find a match, and then you get really bad heroes that you can't do anything. And if you lose 24 trophies. And then if you win, you get just 10. So for every loss, I have to win 3 times to make up for that loss. And then I have to wait 2 to 3 minutes per game. That got annoying for me. And I hated being that high where you can't really play the game. I wanted to do the 3 wins yesterday, and it took me about 2.5 hours to just get the 3 wins. And since then, I was just
for 3 wins.
Yes, because I'm not finding games. I try for 5 minutes and then I stop and then I come back and try for 5-10 minutes. I don't find a match and then I come back an hour later. I try. There is no matches. That got annoying. And when I get a match, I see the guy has Albedo, Ains, and Arthur, and I have nothing. And I'm like, okay, so I have to wait another half an hour to find a match to get that win. Now I dropped 400 trophies. It's much easier to find matches and it's a little more fun. But then I cannot be at the top. So I don't know how that would be fixed, but it's not fun if you try to reach the top and then you get stuck there and you cannot play anymore.
Actually, one thing I had in mind is if they somehow make this a PvE mode, if they have certain bosses, Kane that you had to beat, and you get those random cards and there's some constellation, maybe you have a quest to do, or maybe it's a voyage where you keep on going with these. I don't know where exactly I'm going with this, but I think maybe PvE would be fun. And what do you guys think about that?
That basically sounds like doing the Arcane Labyrinth, except that instead of picking relics, kind of pick out heroes, right? Is that what you're talking about? I think it'll be an interesting mode. It's just that I think a lot of these modes, and currently the Battle of Blood, it suffers from a problem where if Lilith keep adding more events into the game, it has to be rewarding because these events take people's time. The AFKArena is a game where people try to, not spend that much time playing it actively every day. And then if you're like picking heroes and like trying to like overcome bosses, that's gonna take you a lot of time. And I'm sure there's a lot of people who are currently not a fan of logging in for the labyrinth just even twice a day. Once every 2 days. Sorry.
Yeah, it's definitely very troublesome. I mean, there's lots of things that are going to change about that, though. We know New Lab is coming. We've seen the changes on test. We see the campaign nerf, the second wave about to come. And we're recently getting to chapters we never thought about before. So if chapter 35 replays used to be the endgame standard, some people are breaking through chapter 37 right now. And there's one person in this table that spent about a month in the early game, and that's about it. And that would be Almo. So, Almo, you have a lot of endgame experience. What are some heroes and changes you see in campaign when you broke recently to 36? What's the meta like right now? And what are some new synergies you maybe found as a result?
Well, one thing I noticed, especially after the last change, is there is no meta per se. I can just play any hero. I think I don't even go and check replays anymore. I just see what heroes in front of me, put 5 heroes if they work. If not, see what I can take out, put in, and try to get a win out of it. I started doing that, especially after they added Albedo and Ains. I no longer started copying the other teams and just went ahead and tried different things. And since I can retry easily for different battles, I can even start with Battle 5 and then go back to Battle 1 if Battle 1 was difficult. Or try to go with the hardest and put my best team there and then play with other battles with different teams. I don't think there is a meta right now for PvE. Any hero could work. I have all heroes 5 stars, so I can test any hero I want. And then if one of the heroes dies fast, I change its location, change the position, or change the hero himself out. But I think anything could work in Chapter 35 plus. And I've seen that with newer replays too. When they just change the campaign, I see different people just doing different things, and people are no longer copying each other. Well, that's not fully true, but a lot of people are changing things.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's possible in the future we'd enjoy something like more than 5 sets? Or do you think in the future campaign could maybe change?
More than 5 sets per boss battle, you mean?
Yes.
I think that would be... Okay, in the past that would have been really hard. Now it's easier, but that would make it even harder for people that are trying to catch up if they're not paying a lot to get all the heroes maxed. If there are like 7 or 8 battles, so they need 40 heroes to beat them. So it might get frustrating for people. Maybe other ways to do it is, I don't know, to incorporate an actual boss in the middle of the battle, like you fight Kane just in the middle, and then you fight other heroes, cool. Like you're doing Abyssal Expedition. Something different, but not adding more battles. I don't think adding is the best idea.
How about a military mode where you go 7 versus 7 or something?
That would be interesting too. More heroes, less heroes, or you can only use 3 versus 5, or some other changes. But also now they're adding furniture, signature item. I don't know if they're adding furniture item yet, but that's something they could do to make it even harder. But it's not going to be more fun. It's just harder and more retries. But as you said, if they do something different, that would be more interesting to see and try to beat instead of repetitive games, just harder and harder heroes.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think?
I'm interested to see how campaign feels after the next wave of nerfs coming in the upcoming 1.52. Mm-hmm. I saw some screenshots on test server of stages being like the 4th and 5th battles of stages only being nerfed. And I think that's like the levels being reduced and even the ascension of the enemy heroes being reduced. And I saw it a couple of days ago, and I just think that's a really strange way to go about it if that's what actually is happening. I would assume if you are going to nerf something, you do it sort of uniformly. So all stages should be at the same, level and power, instead of having like the 5th stage a lot weaker and the 4th stage a bit weaker. Although this does make it easier for people with fewer heroes usable. Say, for example, if somebody only had 20 ascended heroes and they were doing 5 sets in one fight past 33-32, this would potentially make it easier for them to clear the 5th stage with something a lot weaker that they have. But as somebody who approaches this with a wide variety of heroes to choose from, it will feel a bit weird for me, I'd imagine, if this does happen, to see this drop off.
Pana, how about you step in on this? Do you have any idea what this is going to be about?
Honestly, not super really. If we're talking about getting, I guess, more balancing the end game so that it's I don't know, I guess a little bit more fair instead of just throwing a bunch of heroes at it. Because I kind of agree with not just adding more fights. I know that a lot of people kind of complain about that, and it's not even just for not having the heroes, it's just lazy of a balance. I had seen when they had added in the furniture items, or not furniture items, the signature items into the actual campaign, and that's definitely one way. I'm not really 100% sure how much that shakes it up. I definitely know there's definitely some broken signature items when you actually start adding them in, especially with a lot of the more like meta heroes. Definitely, that would it would definitely increase the difficulty of it. I guess you'd really have to kind of test that out and see how that actually goes, especially with a lot of people that do kind of push. It would definitely be a wall for a lot of people if they actually start adding in the signature items and the furniture items.
Like a theory someone brought up to shout out to Shay, is that the campaign changes, both the most recent ones and the ones that are coming in about a week, a theory they brought up is that this might be Lilith's attempt to try and adjust sort of the immediate power scaling jump between needing one team to 5, where they want to nerf, I believe the nerf is chapters 31 through 36, and then kind of make this slow ascend that was present in previous chapters, like the slow climb from 25, 26, 27, and try and add this into these chapters instead of making just this massive jump at 30, huge jump at 34, 35. Try and decrease these power scalings to make it slowly go up and hopefully release, I guess it'd be like 5 to 6 chapters and kind of keep this scaling present.
Yeah, because right now the levels are slowly rising, and then you get to those breakpoints where, all right, at 30, 60, you're good to go, you broke the point, and now 31-4, the levels are higher, and you need a whole new carry. Would you maybe take 31-4 back 10 levels or something, just to make it easier on players? Or is it just too much of a, I don't know, signature thing of the game?
I think taking it back and taking it back a little bit, not too far, but taking it back and rewarding players for building a wider roster, at least earlier on, I think is the right idea. I don't think you need to push 2 full teams. And given the struggle that is put into climbing that far, the jump between 30 and 31 seems just way too large in comparison to anything you would have fought previously. I think that the campaign changes make a lot of sense, bringing back the levels and ascensions. I'd just like to see, say, sort of the biggest issue, mostly being the power cap, kind of present in these chapters. I'd like to see that adjusted, as well as a more fluent scaling out of going 31 up to 37, 38, where it's not this, you need 40 levels to pass this chapter.
I would also be very interested to see what they do with minimum power requirement, for sure, because already we have a number of people reporting being power capped in even chapter 34 before these nerfs are coming in. And how this is going to affect them going forwards, I'd be interesting to see. We have to wait until it's on live server, I guess, for people to actually experience that, because there isn't any information on it. But what you were talking about before with the dropping the levels for 31-4, I expect that they wouldn't do something like this because they want to keep like a continuous increase of enemy strength, but it would certainly be an option. I think this is why, say, the first team remains at full strength in these campaign stages that on the test server post nerf.
I don't know if I can reason it though.
Sorry, what was that?
I don't know if that's the right way to go about it still, though. I'm curious to hear, White Sushi, you recently, I hear, broke through 31. And so what do you feel about how it is right now? Do you feel like it's too difficult?
I'm not someone who spends a lot of time hard pushing, so the changes are good, but I don't really feel like I benefited a lot from it. I just kind of push when I find the time for it, and being like not that high, not that close to the power gap. It's quite easy. So when Lilith make these changes, I don't really notice it. Although on a chapter 34 account I'm currently playing, it does feel a lot easier with all the changes and stuff.
So on the on 3160, so the first team is full strength. The second team has a slight reduction in strength, like a few levels and a few ascensions. And then the third team has a massive reduction in strength. All the heroes are legendary.
Really?
Tier, and 20 levels lower than Team 1. Yeah. So that's 3160 on test server right now.
That's
which,
ridiculous.
Again, as you mentioned before, this is the first time you use 3 teams. So Lilith is, I think, for people who will struggle to put together a third team, this is a huge benefit for them, because that third team is so much weaker than what they will have been fighting to get there. So if you only have 2 carries, you can kind of put together some sort of rubbish, maybe with some, if you have a decent celerity tree, you put some celerity heroes in and maybe they can just, finish the job kind of situation, not have to actually think about how to fight at such a large power gap that you have been previously.
New meta, celerity heroes finish the job set.
Yeah, what I did for a huge amount of chapter 33, because I didn't have a very large hero pool at this point, and this was before Daemon release, this was before furniture. I had a decent hero tree. I would just throw in Kaz, I would throw in Titus is popular now, he wasn't before as popular before furniture or widely used. I would literally just throw in celerity heroes because it was my highest tree. Press retry a number of times and it worked eventually. Yeah, campaign will certainly be accelerated for the wider player base. Now, what they do with min power capping, I'm excited and interested to see.
I see. That sounds definitely very interesting. We'll see how it is when it hits live, and I'll go test it on test too. I do want to move on to the next topic, though. And I want to remind you all the overall theme of this is heroes of this table. And I want to talk about different types of heroes. That's going to be the heroes of the community. You guys can cringe at me later. I don't know if you guys are aware, but recently a guy by the name of D-Trend, he added benchmark to certain someone's signature item tier list, and because people didn't have the contest, they got very upset and someone had to release a video addressing the controversy. The story itself doesn't really matter for this. That's besides the point. The community really cares about people being accurate in the small details. It's almost like they're hoarding truth verification to ensure quality stays intact. And Chromos, you're our local expert on hoarding. I'd love to hear your advice for people who want to help out the community and not get burned out in the process.
Oh, geez. Am I the right person to answer that question? I don't know. But no, I mean, I think the main thing, with interacting with the community, just being positive and just showing that you're passionate about what you want to do, regardless of what it is. I remember when I first started hoarding and I was posting updates and whatnot, people were really upset that I was not being as efficient as I could have been. And then but because I was really passionate about it and I kept doing it, the community turned around and now they really embraced it. And so I think that having that kind of outlook of just this is what I want to do, this is why I want to do it, I'm doing it for myself and not for anything else, that's always been really, really important for just people latching on to a person.
Why do you think this happens?
Why do I think what happened?
What do you think people specifically in this community that's growing up so large are so affectionate about everything being exactly correct as they are? I mean, in the end, it's a game.
Lilith has done a really good job with building a game that people want to spend time in, and there's so many different ways that you can. I think I spend more time planning how I'm going to play the game than I actually play the game, and that really lends itself well to building communities and spending time in spaces that of other like-minded people that just want to also get better at AFKArena. And so with that, you'll obviously have personalities pop up. One of my favorite people, I'll just throw them out, is Mia who on the Discord servers is a Lucretia like cult leader, is the way he describes himself. And like he's just so passionate about Lucretia, and other people will get into really heated arguments because some people just don't think Lucretia is very good. But like there's a lot of passion there, and there's like it generates a lot of discussion around that kind of thing.
All right, so
It also depends on the context of the content. For example, if you are like pushing out something like a tier list, people are going to be critical about it because AFKArena is this game that it's meant to be played over like a half a year or more. And a lot of people are like investing a lot of their resources into these heroes. So they want to know that they're making the right choice, which is why they're like super particular about how accurate these lists are going to be.
Yeah, I definitely think with that, you have certain people not like certain, I guess, content creators not being open to hearing other points. Like this is the way that it is. This is like why they thought it was. And they'll more get into an argumentative state more than like a discussion of just like, hey, this is why I made this decision. And then you can like have a discussion about like where the viewpoints differ and like why you made a point.
I think with this game as well, it's important to note that this game takes a lot of time. So when you build a hero, it isn't just resources, it's actual physical time investment that is going into an actual hero. So if you tell someone that a hero they built is bad and they've spent 6 months building it, pulled all their resources into it, then I think that's why you get a lot more of the sort of defensive mentality of like, this tier list is wrong because this hero is lower down than they should be. So from like a strictly cognitive point of view, I think it's important to note that this is also a time investment. It isn't just a resource investment. This is a real amount of time it takes to build these heroes. They're not just instantly built. Someone who spends 6 months building something is going to be very defensive inherently of anyone who criticizes that point of view.
I think a lot of defensiveness and also sometimes even aggression that comes in with a lot of guides. I recently started making guides a lot more consistently, and I've gotten quite a bit of disliking of some of my opinions. But I think a lot of that comes from sort of a passion for the community, even from some of those aggressors, where they want to see everyone succeed. A lot of people really support building like Shem and Belinda early. And it's because at the time, that is what worked for them, and it was excellent for them. So a lot of people tend to then push that onto others to try and see success. They want others to get the same passion from the game that they've gotten. They want others to enjoy it. They want others to have fun. A lot of the time, that can sometimes come off a little bit too aggressive and a little bit too strong. And then having a discussion tends to get very misguided. But that's something that a lot of this community in particular is really good at sort of assessing those. A lot of the community is very good at like looking over, okay, maybe this isn't optimal, but in some scenarios, it may be the best choice, and kind of having very healthy discussions.
all right, so still on the topic of heroes of the community, I don't know if the game does enough to enable teamwork. So we do have Abyssal Expedition and Mercenaries, which we didn't have before. You see people, even at the very highest level of play in guilds like Casuals, you see stuff like Burnout, and even with the recent dev Q&A, I don't think that teamwork is quite there enough. I mean, the friends list is just too uninteractive, and unless you go the extra mile to test, there's not a lot you can do with other people, which I think is also an issue in the long term for people to bring their friends in. So Panafonic, I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Well, I can tell you, as someone who has brought about 4 to 5 people pretty recently into the game, a lot of the teamwork stuff is good topic to get on. I pretty much will just kind of guide a few of the new people. I do kind of a stand on Belinda, Shem. Like I would say mid game. I don't know, like maybe 160. I definitely know that I've pushed both of them towards that. I've even pushed both of them into the Abyssal Expedition and everything. And other than the fact that they both had the casual enrollment and stuff, just being able to kind of talk to them is always nice, kind of being able to guide them. And I definitely know they don't have any of that kind of, I guess, mentorship or teamwork or anything from any of the guilds that they have. I definitely don't see any other guilds like Casuals. I would say a lot of the bigger guilds definitely have a lot better of the, I guess, teamwork aspect, the info sharing, than just kind of more of the casual stuff. We also talk about the topic of burnout. I got burned out for a little bit there, it was kind of for a different reason than most people. It was a burnout because they were actively changing the files in the back end. They were encrypting stuff. They were changing the files from a JSON to a more compressed version. And it eventually became me not wanting to play the game simply because I couldn't do anything like on the back end. There was no change in the game gameplay wise that made me go, I don't want to play this game anymore. It was down to, oh, well, I can't see anything, which means that I can't create stuff, which means that I can't like do any kind of leaks. So
that's an interesting take on burnout. I mean, most players get burned out because the game gets too repetitive. And you say you get burned out because you don't have the same files that you could have done in mind otherwise. But what do you feel do you feel like the game is doing enough to enable teamwork within the game in the game modes, or do you feel like it could do more? And if it would, then how?
I think that it was a very positive change to be able to have mercenaries. Being able to have a strong friend just kind of lend you someone to beat a stage was, I would say, a very positive thing in my aspect, simply because I'm very far into the campaign, I'm very far into the game, and being able to grab my Rowan or grab a Talene or something, or grab one of the other carries that I have, and just being able to break like a really hard stage. I know one of my friends always, like every single week, right on the reset, will just ask for one of my heroes, and I always make sure that they get that above a lot of other people. I would say it's definitely a positive thing, especially when they come to me and they say, hey, I'm having a lot of trouble with this stage, and I can just say, well, if you use this person right here, that's fine. So just request from me and I'll give them to you, and then you can beat that. And then like seeing them just blow through a stage with just that is so nice. I would like to see you being able to do more with the mercenaries. I think the limit is a little too low right now.
I hear that's one, and maybe you could do the subscription to do more.
Yeah,
but do you feel
subscription makes it
Yeah. Do you feel like there's any other modes you should be able to use them, or do you feel like there should be some sort of co-op maybe? I don't know, maybe we can beat campaign stages together. Me and a friend of mine, just like in the Misty Valley, there used to be this help feature. So I'm asking kind of, does this game enable teamwork, or could it possibly?
I think it could probably do more. I would like to see smaller kind of teamwork stuff. I know definitely trying to get 70 players together is a little bit like herding cats sometimes, especially for the guilds that are not super talkative. I definitely know that like a lot of the top guilds, a lot of the people that are shooting for the top spot all have discords. They all talk. There's a lot of planning that goes into it. But a lot of the lower guilds that are just kind of casual, like actual casual, it's just 70 people just doing what they want instead of a teamwork. I would like to see something that is like, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 people take on something, immediate reaction to things that need to happen.
All right, and this I'll turn to you guys in general. I feel like the new leaks for Abyssal might be that mode. What do you think?
As someone who has seen the leaks and even did the translations for it, I don't think the new Abyssal leaks actually change the gameplay much. At least not in the cooperative aspects. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, some of the changes, supposed leaks for Abyssal include them having like a grain silo spawn thing on the map that appears at reset time, and people can go towards it. So while technically it's possible to have 2 people buddy up and have one person have like a stronger player there, you don't really get the same sense of co-op as if, both of you are actually required to take down something stronger. I think this current Abyssal Expedition, they tried to force a bit more co-op by placing high-tier cities on the path, so that if you want to take a shortcut, you have to like go through the city together, sort of. But I honestly not seen many guilds actually make use of that, and they just kind of go around anyway. And even in the bigger guilds, you still want to go around it, even though you can kill the cities, just because you need the tiles.
The large cities in the path blocking the way. For the stronger guilds, it doesn't require any teamwork at all, because you can just solo them by the time that it's efficient for you to be there. But for the, again, more casual player base and for casual enrollment, it could well be a large problem, because you need to get somebody, you need to be talking to somebody, basically. You need to coordinate each taking one team down. And I feel like Abyssal, the previous iteration of Abyssal, already encouraged enough teamwork for that specific demographic, and this only made it much harder for this demographic. Perhaps now that people are more used to it, having done this trial run, it will be better and they'll be ready to improve for it in the upcoming one. But I don't think it achieves the aim, if that is the aim, to get people to cooperate more. Just generally about the Abyssal, I think, I'm not a huge fan of this map or the release schedule.
Really?
But yeah, I mean, it's a huge amount of. I mean, the game is called AFKArena, and we're getting another. The Abyssal is starting again in the very near future. We're having some discussions as a guild how hard we play this, and how there's a lot of people in my guild, and I'm confident that this sentiment will be echoed in many guilds. That I mean, the schedule is just at the moment is just there's just too many of them. Like it's two Abyssals back to back in this one finished a week or so ago, and we're already getting one in a couple of weeks. It's absolutely crazy. And I've noticed that even in a competitive guild where we have, again, as I mentioned on the previous podcast, we have half the guild is active and talking literally daily. Even in this kind of situation, a lot of members are not really up for full tryharding the event coming up. So I can't imagine what the situation is like in other guilds like ours, or in more casual guilds, for sure.
Do you think there's any kind of co-op mode that can work, whether it's Abyssal or not, that you could think of that will encourage people to work together in the game?
I can't think of one right now, but I'd love to have more quest type things that you could do, as someone mentioned, or voyages, or maybe. I know it's hard to do something for 70 people in the guild, but if you target like only 7 at a time or 10 at a time, where they can take on quests, or even on campaign where it's something that is live to do, not to lend the mercenary and hope that they can beat the stage with. It's just something that, okay, all 10 of you are on right now, and then something happens and you have to make decisions on the spot, and someone takes on the tank role, someone takes on the healing role, and I don't know.
Oh, that would be cool.
Something that can be a little different. Yeah, but just to make it more interactive and more teamwork than just get that hero from me and hopefully you can do it or not.
Yeah, like having maybe somebody do each one of those roles, like somebody only placing sustenance heroes, somebody only doing celerity. What do you guys think about that?
If you were going to do something like, sorry. If you were going to do something like that, you would almost have to have it where we're at the current event, where you're given heroes instead of using your own heroes. I think that would be cool. You could definitely find some real good synergy just in some really odd ways like that. But I could imagine matching up with someone who's just woefully unprepared, and all of a sudden they're the celerity heroes and they just have like nothing, and it comes down to everyone else.
I mean, unpopular opinion, I was thinking about something to do with Abyssal last night. I think it's supposed to be this cooperative event, but I was thinking perhaps maybe remove the focus on the individual. So when someone takes a tile, it doesn't just give the bonus to that person who takes a tile, it gives it to everybody as a community, because it's supposed to be a guild event. So when someone takes a city, it shouldn't just be this person gets everything. It would be really nice to see it spread out a bit more. So it's like, oh, cool, this person got a city, instead of, oh, this person got another city now, I don't get any resources. It it would remove a lot of that element of frustration if there was a bit more of a community sort of approach to it. So I think perhaps what Attire was taken, it should at least benefit everybody else in some way as well as just the individual. I think it would remove a lot of the frustration, a lot of the like required grindiness.
Grub's basically saying seize the means of production.
I absolutely love that. So the core principle that I try and sort of get across to my guild when I'm leading through Abyssal is that everything that we do together. So any city or town or village or whatever it is at what stage in the Abyssal, anything that we take has us stronger together so that we can convert that into boss damage. Because everything that you do at the end of the day, you are trying to convert, be as efficient as possible to convert to as much boss damage as possible, to kill the boss as many times or as quickly as possible, depending on your situation.
Mm-hmm.
So having the game mode switch to where it actually does visibly benefit each member of the militia when somebody takes a tile, I think that would be a fantastic way for people to visually get that positive feedback from the corporation.
Yeah, but just have it as well as actual benefit. Like when someone takes a city, say 50 essence per hour goes to every single person in the guild. Because I think it's odd to me that it's supposed to be this community-focused event, but it feels that there's still quite a lot of focus on the individual of like who can do the most boss damage, who has the most essence overall. So it still feels like there's this sort of contrasting individual sort of approach from the leaderboard point of view instead of necessarily what the community point of view is, which I think is the whole point of the Abyssal. It'd be nice if it felt like you were working 100% collaboratively with everyone else instead of kind of working with them, but also trying to get the biggest spot on the leaderboard to flex or whatever it might be. So I think I'd like to see it change a little bit more to actually benefit in a more communal way instead of it just being the strongest players just basically get to show off to everybody else.
I think it reduces overall motivation. I mean, if I take that to extreme, we abolish militias and everybody that conquers a settlement gives to everyone else in the game that enrolled like 0.2 essence per hour. I mean, maybe that would be an interesting event, but this podcast is going on very insightful. I really want to thank you guys for coming. I think this was great. It really was, at least for me. Now, let's move on to final thoughts. Zolbar, what do you think?
Nothing much more to add from this side. Thank you very much, Linka, for having me on again. Thank you to everybody else here on the podcast. It's been really good fun. I hope to see you guys again soon.
Don't really have anything to add either, but thanks for having me on the podcast. It was a lot of fun as well.
I think the game's going in a good direction. It maybe just needs to slow down ever so slightly. You kind of get that, I would say, event overload that kind of pushes people off a lot, especially when you jump into a game and there are like 13 events going on. People kind of lose their head.
Yeah, I share the same sort of positivity of like I like the direction the game is going. But I think it'd be nice to see the friend list change from 30 to like 50 to be a bit more like help the weaker players out sort of thing. But likewise, thanks for having me and hope to see you all again soon.
Can I talk about anything, Linker?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So for those who don't know, I've been working hard to get a community event started. And so the community event I have in mind at the moment is having everybody do some version of the way that I've been playing the game, where I've just been saving diamonds all the time. And so if that's something that you're interested in,
check out the link in description.
Perfect. And so yeah, if you want to join, please do. We have about 200 people who want to participate, and the whole goal or the whole timeline is just to have everybody hoard until I hit 1 million diamonds, and then depending on what you want to do, you can kind of do whatever it should be. Everybody should have like about 200,000 to 250,000 diamonds by the end of it if they stick with it. But people are excited. It should be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to join, check out the description down below.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone, both here and people who are listening right now, putting aside the time, listening in, talking here. I think it's been a wonderful experience chatting with you all. Thank you.
I also want to say thank you all for having me here and for your time. And I just want to say that I have complete faith in Lilith that they're going to keep the game fun and entertaining. And they've been doing that for the past few months since I've been playing. So even if it gets boring or you burned out, now I know they're going to do something about it.
All right, and I'm happy to announce this is the second ever roundtable. Some people came and went, but I'm very happy with this one. I'd love to have you all for more, and definitely check out the guest content in the links below. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Buff Maulers.
There you go.
I
There
think
you go.
Maulers are good right now. I don't know. People are sleeping on them a little.
There's definitely some good ones in there. Like you definitely get a scream that just like stomps his way to the other side
I'm
of the
waiting
map.
for Stomp Comp.
I think that's misleading.
You're essentially telling people to waste diamonds.
Everyone knows about this.
I would buff Maulers.
Yeah, buff Talene.
Exactly.